Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Brian Von Ancken on the podcast. He is the founder of the Wellness Growth Mastermind. He started this mastermind pretty much by accident a few years ago when he introduced two of his connections together, and it kind of just spawned from there. This is a mastermind for entrepreneurs and professionals within the wellness industry, helping them share ideas, collaborate, and partner across the wellness space as they build and grow businesses. He's built the community from 2 people to 200 now. He hosts monthly Zoom calls. He has quarterly in-person meetings, and he's got a Slack channel. Very interesting. And also we talk a little bit about how he started his career as the first legal hire at Tough Mudder back in 2012. As they were just getting started. So really fascinating episode about starting a mastermind and how it's similar and different to starting a different business. And stick around to the end. We have a little bit of a special guest that joins at the end, but really fascinating episode. So let's get Brian on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. All right, Brian, nice to see you. Welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Maybe give everybody a little bit of an overview of who you are, where you are, and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Brian Von Ancken. I'm here in Brooklyn, New York, and spent most of my life and career trying to make people healthier in a lot of different ways. And currently, I'm doing that via the Wellness Growth Mastermind, which is a community of health and wellness leaders with people from like the Aura Rings, 8 Sleeps, Pelotons, Headspaces of the world, getting together, just connecting about growth and how to grow our businesses.
And so, is your group a compiling of leaders within these companies that are trying to figure out how to grow their businesses, or are you getting a lot of entrepreneurs that are outside of the wellness space trying to become better health, better well for themselves versus like being in the wellness business? Like what, or is it a combination of all of that?
Yeah, so um, we only have people within the wellness space in my
Okay.
group. That's not to say we don't talk about ways for our members to get healthier, but the main focus is for entrepreneurs in the health and wellness space and leaders in the space at more established brands to get together and talk about all the different ways to grow businesses. Because right now, I think if you're familiar with the wellness space, I think this is true in a lot of spaces. It's hard to grow, right? You can only put so much money into performance marketing if you're D2C, or you can only do the tried and true things if you're B2B. And so, how do you get creative, and how do you make sure that you stick out in what is a pretty crowded marketplace in the health and wellness space?
Got it. So how big is the community now? And then, would love to learn about like why you started it. And because I was looking at your profile, you've got a very unique kind of career path to starting this business.
Yeah, I mean, so I am. We've got over 200 members, a lot of up and coming brands, a lot of the established brands. But I mean, I started this thing by accident. So, I
Okay.
mean, the long story short for me is really um, to quickly go back. Like, I was in law school, right? So I like to say I lived the should life. I was like, got a good grades, went to good school, went to law school, was about to go work at a big firm. And then in my third year of law school, I interned for a company called Tough Mudder, which at the time was like 10 people in a room. And I just fell in love with the concept, what they were doing. I played college football. I was always about physical health, and I just felt like they were doing it so differently. For those of you who don't know Tough Mudder, it's kind of this crazy obstacle course event back in the 2010s where people were running 13 miles, getting shocked by electricity, jumping into cold water, climbing over walls. It was an event that was all about camaraderie and teamwork. And so I had the opportunity to join them as the first hire on their legal team, and took advantage and kind of rode that rocket ship from zero to a couple $100 million business pretty early, and ended up wearing a number of hats there and kind of caught the bug for entrepreneurship.
So what was it like at Tough Mudder back in the day? And I was telling you before we hit record, I did a very early Tough Mudder. It was probably in 2010, 2011, something like that. when I first moved to Philadelphia, they put on a course, and I don't know if it was, I highly doubt it was the first, but it was definitely an early iteration of it. It was on a ski resort, and I remember sprinting up the face of a black diamond, obviously with no snow on it, in the summer, so which was not fun.
Do you remember, were you sprayed with a hose at the end? That was our showers. We couldn't afford showers in the beginning. Spraying people.
I do remember hosing off. I don't know if I was purposely sprayed, but I do remember finding a hose at the ski resort to try to clean myself off before I jumped back in the car and drove home.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience to work for them. I think what was interesting about that company was, um, it was my first lesson in brand loyalty. I mean, we had people literally at every event getting tattoos of Tough Mudder on their arms, and we were a company. This is something that only like Harley Davidson had done before, and we were just able to build this affinity very quickly and bring people in who were deemed like crazy, but they just had this diehard of passion for uh, pushing themselves physically. And so what happened is this attracted a team of really amazing people, and so that pretty a lot of the people I used to work with at Tough Mudder have gone on to start their own companies. I don't know if you're familiar with like the Drone Racing League or
Mm,
Eat the Bomb or Everyday Dose. Like there's just a bunch of companies out there that now are Tough Mudder alumni, and it just attracted people who were entrepreneurial, interested in doing things. And, a lot of it was just a great lesson in figuring stuff out, right? So we would have these events in a field with 20,000 people. There'd be no infrastructure. We had to build it all out. We had to figure everything out and work through the local permitting, work through all the logistics. And we pulled it off. And a lot of us were 20 somethings at the time. And it was just this really formative experience that I think spoke to how much you can get done if you have the right mindset and the right team around you.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely remember the cult like following because I remember getting the orange headband and I wore it in another race. I was in Philly, so I did the Broad Street Run, which is a run down Broad Street, and I wore that. And everybody, every like 10 seconds, I'd be like, "Tough Mudder," somebody would yell at me like because they saw the headband. Interesting. So, how did you go from Tough Mudder to then the Wellness Growth Mastermind? Like, talk through that kind of journey because I'm always curious if anybody that starts something, their origin story. Like, was the Wellness Growth Mastermind, was that your first kind of startup thing that you started, or would you have another experience prior to this
No.
that?
So after Tough Mudder, I knew I wanted to start my own thing, and went through some personal challenges and realized that there's more to life and there's more to health than just physical health.
Mm,
Became really interested in mental wellness, social health, that sort of thing. And so I came back and I started my first company, Anchor, which was a mindful social workout. Basically, it was taking a 50-minute boot camp class and bringing breath work meditation
mm,
into it. And this was something that was a bit ahead of its time. I think when I was doing it, people were like, what?
yeah.
And nowadays everybody's kind of doing the breath work, that sort of thing. But it was a really great experience. And I think we were doing pretty well. And then COVID hit, transferred online, had a really thriving community during COVID, but learned a lot about how hard it is to grow a wellness business myself. And
Mm,
so after that, ended up meeting the founder of Othership, which, if you don't know Othership, it's a sauna cold plunge space in Toronto and New York. They also have a
okay.
breathwork app, helped them grow. Also worked at Barry's for a while, but that was essentially 3 years ago where I started this group to help business leaders grow their wellness businesses to kind of serve what I wish I had back in the day when I started my company.
Got it. So let's flash forward to you starting this mastermind by accident. So what was the accident? How did it kind of come about?
Well, have you ever met two smart people and been like, they need to meet, but I
Mm,
want to listen to the conversation?
yeah,
So that's
for
kind
sure.
of what it was. Is I met like a couple interesting people, and I was like, they need to meet. I love to be a connector, but I want to listen. So I created a mastermind group, which was just this monthly call that I would invite all the most interesting, smart people, kind people that I could meet. And I just stuck with it. Something we do the call, I'd write a great follow up, and I think that for me, I believe that it's worthwhile to create compound interest. Everybody needs to be doing that in some way. It could be a podcast, it could be a newsletter, it could be meetings. It doesn't have to be something that's big, but I think it really teaches you a lot about what it takes to build something and to build trust. I mean, I didn't charge for my group. It's now a paid community for 2 years. I built equity, I built trust. And this was something that took a lot of time, but I think it was ultimately really valuable because the people now really understand me. They understand what I'm all about. They understand that I'm somebody who will say what they believe when I say I'm going to do something, that I'm going to do it. And they know my whole thing is this community is people who are accomplished, kind, and generous. And so I'm attracting those people. People want to be around those people. And it sounds so weird since we're so interconnected these days, but it's weirdly hard to go through the effort of finding people who are the right type of people that you want to interact with within your space.
Yeah. Well, we're this is definitely not a direct quote, but I've heard this, like, we're the most connected we've ever been, but we're the loneliest and most depressed that we've ever been as a society. So, you know, I think the other thing you mentioned is trust. I think there's a lot of lack of trust online because everybody can look like they're an expert in something when maybe they're not. And, obviously with the advent of AI and everybody having access to this massively powerful tool, you can make a persona that is completely fake and scam people. And I think that's the kind of really challenging part. And maybe that leads into kind of my other question about kind of how is it kind of growing a wellness business? Like what are some of the challenges that are maybe similar or different to growing, a SaaS business or, a CPG business that you've identified, which, kind of spawned this mastermind?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's unique about the industry is it's an all boats rise industry. Yes,
Mm.
it's crowded and saturated, but if people start taking care of their physical health, they'll start taking care of their mental health. They'll start eating better. They'll start taking care of their emotional, it's kind of worthwhile and worth it for all of us to kind of come together. I've also found that the industry is a bit us versus them. I mean, yes, there's issues with people potentially scamming, but there's also a whole healthcare sick care system out there that's
Oh yeah.
super big, maybe not necessarily serving the people super well. And so, you know, people in the wellness industry with they're dealing with discretionary income, they're dealing with the behavior change, which is extremely hard. Like, we all know what we need to do to be healthy, but to get someone to actually do it is hard. And so I think, there's this us versus them mentality. And then, I just believe that when it comes to these health and wellness businesses, there's so many levers that you can pull, and so many levers you're expected to pull. Your performance marketing has to be locked in, your SEO has to be locked in, you have to be getting on the podcast, you have to be dealing with the influencers, you have to be doing events. And I think that it's worthwhile to have a space that you can come together and share ideas honestly. Because let's be honest, where do you go right now between LinkedIn and ChatGPT, right? It's like, you ask ChatGPT something, that's going to give you some answer. If you were to ask that on LinkedIn, it'd be kind of weird. Maybe you have a couple group texts, but when are you going to be able to say, okay, here's the place where I think I can find someone who actually has the right answer? And so that's kind of what I've hoped to create. And I think we've been able to do it. And I think one of the ancillary benefits of this that people resonate with a lot is just, you know, when you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. I think that's something that people don't have as much of these days.
Yeah.
And if you're working in a health and wellness business, you're trying to make the world healthier, but you're probably in your own bubble. You just have your head down. It's really nice to be in a room with other people where you realize, wait a minute, there's lots of other people trying to do the same thing, and it's inspiring, and you can learn from them and you can partner with them. And I think it sounds so simple, but there's just not as many opportunities for that to happen in our modern world.
Yeah. And are you focused on helping wellness, like, startup entrepreneurs or people? Because I think you said you also have some established brands. So are you also helping professionals within a bigger wellness company kind of figure it out, or like maybe talk about some of the dynamics and some of the things that how you support your community and how it all works?
Yeah, so I think about it as the people who are members are the people who are focused on growth. So typically that's the founder if you're pre-seed or seed level. As you get to a more established brand, it's typically the head of growth, head of marketing, depending on the size, partnerships maybe. And so what we do is we get together virtually monthly. I think of it like a mini conference. It's funny you say, I agree with you that in person is ultimately where people want to go, but I'm always shocked. I average 70 people on my, Zoom calls. And so we get people together, we put them into breakout rooms that I pre-make. We have a topic where this expert speaker for 10 minutes. We do a little mastermind session at the end, solving some problems. But we have that touch point because if you've ever gone to a conference, it's lovely. You go to the conference, you high five some people, you don't see them for a year, or,
Yep.
or maybe you follow up with some people. This allows for more touch points. Then we get together quarterly in person, have like 50 to 75 person events. They're usually in San Francisco, in New York, LA, Miami, kind of major hubs. People travel to it. Some people just come to the locals, and then we have our Slack community. That's kind of that in between day to day. And so we have the more established brands who are interested in hearing from the scrappier younger brands and what they're trying, and then vice versa. Here, hearing from the more established brands, what are the influencers that are working, what are the strategies that are working, what are the partners, what do they think about these vendors, and it just becomes a space where I don't love it when your community is just one thing. If I'm just within a single vertical, just with people who do exactly, I think there's not enough. I don't know, inbreeding is the wrong word, but like you need more genetic diversity in order to have different
Yeah.
types of ideas. And so that's kind of the thought process I have.
Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent of kind of a hybrid mastermind structure where you have an online community, whether it's a meet regularly or you have a Slack channel where you can engage as needed, but then you have live events quarterly or something like that. I'm in an entrepreneurial mastermind group, coaching group that we meet once a quarter in LA. And, it's to your point, if you go to a conference once a year, you come out of that conference with a ton of ideas and you're like, I'm going to change everything that I'm doing in my business. And then you get back to your business and real life hits you in the face. And you're like, and then you realize, oh, it's 11 months later and you are going to the conference again and you haven't done anything that you thought of. Right. And so I do think that, especially having like monthly and quarterly events, you have that accountability also. Right. So if you're said you're going to do something, well, you've got to then potentially own up to whether you did or didn't do it. And so I'm curious so you mentioned the format and kind of the three kind of layers, these monthly calls. Like how has that evolved over the course of the last 2 or plus years when you started this? Like it sounded like it started very accidentally and then now it's more of a framework and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was becoming a dad about a year and a half ago, and I knew I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. And I never thought of this as a business, but as I was figuring out what's next, I said, this actually could be something. And so from there, I started to slowly add things like the quarterly in-person meetups, or slowly add things like the Slack channel. I have this rule of thumb for me where I really don't add something until members are screaming for it.
Mm,
Because there's the number of things I could do and this number of things that are good ideas, it doesn't serve me. I really need to have tunnel vision on just like, hey, making sure the core product is great, making sure that I will add features as, screamed for. But ultimately, the most important thing is making sure that everybody who's in the group feels really supported and feels like I tell them it's like pretend like I'm an investor, pretend like
yeah.
I have your back, and I think that ultimately ends up taking a number of different forms, not necessarily just within the pre-prescribed outline of what the group is.
Yeah. And is this your full-time gig? Like, or is this like you're 100% into this? And if so, like, how is it? I mean, you're probably running it like a business, right? I mean, obviously you're generating revenue, you've got all these events and things like that. So how does it compare to when you started your Anchor platform back in the day? Like, is it a similar workflow or is it harder, easier?
Yeah, it's funny. It's so similar. I mean, if anybody's been the entrepreneur and been the founder, I think the cogs may change, but it's the mentality of like, oh my gosh, I have to do everything, and prioritization, and making sure your model makes sense, and making sure you have the funnel of getting people in. I'm very fortunate in the sense that I really don't do any outbound. A lot of the people just refer and come, to the group. It's a bit under the radar in that regard, and for me, I really am just playing this for the long term. I part of my why is I want the world to be healthier. I could go out and start my own company, and that might help a little bit. But if I can help all these companies get a little bit better, I think that's my biggest leverage point. And
Yeah.
so, that's what I want to be doing, and I want to be doing this for a while. I'm not interested in, not going to juice it up and sell it. I think it's just like slow burn, do the right thing, and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those businesses you can probably operate with very minimal human capital overhead, right? Because you're able to run the masterminds, and I guess on that point, like how do you utilize virtual support? How do you utilize AI to make the coordination and the follow up and the outreach and everything kind of a little bit more automated than maybe you would have done if you started this 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, the answer is not well. And part of it is intentional. Part of it is lack of time. I just feel like with a lot of this stuff, you have to really dedicate a chunk of time to fully embed these sort of things within your business. But I kind of feel like, I've had a lot of services or a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I can help AI generate matches within your community and,
Mm.
help you, save you a lot of time. And ultimately, I just feel like the matches that I make are better. And I'm leaning into the white glove anti-AI for now.
Yeah.
We'll see how long I can sustain that. But ultimately, I think that's the differentiator, that people feel the human touch. They feel the warmth. They feel the, um, kind of like, I'm just like hyper aware of like, hey, what's top of mind for you right now? Oh, cool. Like, I just had a conversation with somebody. I just don't know how I could ever put my brain into an AI, to make those connections, maybe at some point. But I'm interested in it. I'm open to it, but I'm also trying to zag. I think the bet that I'm making is that communities like these are going to become more and more valuable as AI becomes more prolific. And so the more I can differentiate myself and distinguish myself from an AI product, I think that might be a good thing for me in the long run.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think sometimes, there's areas of my life that I'm like, okay, I need to figure out an AI or an outsourced opportunity for this, because it's not, I think your matching, scenario there is very white. If it's white glove, it feels more curated versus I pushed a button and AI said, and maybe AI will get there, right? Maybe you can download your brain and it can listen to every single one of your conversations and then make connections that you can't make, of like, oh, you should introduce this person to that person, right? Maybe we get there at some point in our lives. But I think to your point right now, having a little bit of everybody's rushing to use AI, having a little bit of almost an AI detox with your mastermind group is probably a welcomed, kind of rush to sanity.
And just, I don't know, just think about it too. Like anytime you've ever been recommended anything from a friend, if you have any whiff that there's um, machine involved, or you have a whiff that it's just, I think that these things are more delicate than we think, right? I talk a lot about how not all leads are created the same, right?
Mm,
So just because you generate a ton of leads from a meta ad, um, not necessarily mean it's the same as the warm leads that you can get from the referral that you build within the community, within your business. And so, I mean, people know this, but I think I'm somebody who, I really, really lean into the value and the humanness of that intentional connection. Yes, maybe I could have made it, but that little flair that I put on the intro email, that seems subtle about the basketball reference that we all share in common. Like I'm just not sure it could get there. Maybe it could,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we'll see.
So where do you see this going in the next kind of 12 to 24 months? Like, how are you trying to kind of blow this up to being, the next big wellness mastermind retreat, and you're going to be rubbing shoulders with like the Tony Robbinses of the world and, all that fun stuff? Or are you trying to create this to be much more of a curated, very intimate, invite only kind of mastermind that, you know, there's pluses and minuses to probably both of those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be the invite only scenario. The question is, how big do I want that to be? I've seen a lot of communities out there grow too quickly, and I think that can lead to alienation. But I joked with a member recently that, like, no matter what I do in 2 years, you're going to say, oh, you remember when WGM was so great? Like back in the day, like everybody has back in the day syndrome. So
Yeah.
I don't want to worry about that too much. But I mean, my goal is to build a business that is sustainable for the life I want to live. And then at the same time, be for people who are doing this for the right reasons, for people who are looking to build successful big businesses in health and wellness, but doing it because they are fueled by an inner passion to help the world get healthier. And so, can that mean 1,000-person community? Maybe. Could that mean 250 and I just cap it and I just like stick with people and like ride it out for 10 years with the same 250? That could also happen. And
Yeah.
I'll figure that out. And I think for me, the biggest thing, like I said, is just not getting too far ahead of myself. I think a lot of us can get a little too um, you look at the numbers and the spreadsheets and think about your projections and like, let's be honest, how many of those end up panning out the way that we said it was? It's a helpful exercise, but I think it needs to be viewed as such. It's not necessarily a prerequisite to, I believe in the power of knowing where you want to go and making sure you have a plan to get there. But it can get a little too number crunchy for me. I think you can just have that rough sense, and then trust that you'll get there, and you'll make the decisions in the moment that make sense.
Yeah, and not every business has to be a multi-billion-dollar, world dominating business. Like there's a ton of small businesses out there that are just that, and that's the intention. Is they are small, they support a specific community, and there's a lot of value that is generated from that. It doesn't have to be this like conglomerate that you take over the world. It might be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, and all of that. I guess if from the lessons that you've heard and learned, in the wellness space, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, they want to start a wellness company, like what are some of the things that you've heard that are maybe roadblocks, stumbling blocks that somebody that's just starting now could maybe avoid? Like what's some advice that you've heard that maybe would be helpful for somebody in that kind of starting point of their journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in this day and age, distribution is king. I mean, you
Mm,
have to understand what your distribution is going to be. You can have a great idea and a great product, and that can get you to a certain point. But understanding how you're going to get the word out on those sorts of things is really important. It's so loud out there. And in an ideal world, you have some sort of channel that is yours, and you have built it organically, and you have the ability to build that community over time, like I said. And so, the best thing is to start it now. Start now. Don't wait. Don't let it be perfect. Put things out there. Let it grow. Learn. And I still think that there's room for being connected to science, being connected to studies, being connected to ways to validate what it is that you're doing. I think that's easier now than ever. You don't necessarily have to go through 3-year clinical trials, depending on what you're doing. And I think, surrounding yourself with other people who have done it before. I think it's important to go in eyes wide open. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to talk to people who have done it, because I don't want people to lose their enthusiasm, because that's where a lot of entrepreneurship comes from. But I want people to be motivated and inspired by more than just heart. Because I think a lot of people come into this space and they want to build something because they're so passionate about it, which I love. But you need to pair that with expertise, with intention, with like smarts, and it's overwhelming out there to do that. And so I think if people just uh, take some small steps, get some hypothesis testing, and then make their way towards product market fit. And then once you're there, there's a lot you can do once you still have something that people actually want.
yeah. And I know that you kind of started this by accident, but I guess what's maybe something that what's a benefit that maybe you weren't thinking about once you got into this a little bit that you've come away with? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's tons, but like, what's something that maybe you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize I was going to get this, and this could be anything when you kind of started this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm somebody who I love to feel connected in spaces, not just where I live. And so it's just so nice for me to have a community now in LA. And I'm going to an event. We have an event in San Francisco in September,
Mm.
which will just be really fun. And to be able to have, I don't want to say a couple different homes, but like have community in a couple different physical spaces. I think that's something that was unexpected, but has kind of happened. And then I really think it's getting to try some kooky new wellness things, right? Like I'm kind of on the cutting edge here. So I tore my calf earlier this year, and was doing some peptides, some red light therapy, all different things. And I was very excited to be somebody who can have the opportunity to try some cutting edge stuff, and you know see what works for me.
So what's one or two things if you've got an athlete out there that's listening and they're like, I've seen all the red light therapy masks and things like that, and what's one thing that isn't just hype, it actually works from your experience or from what you've seen in some of the people that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just turned 40, and so I love playing basketball, and basketball is something that gets a little harder as you get towards 40. And so I've been pairing basketball with Pilates, which
Mm.
like I'm like the only guy in there, but it's really necessary. When I do that, I feel like I have a much less likelihood of my back or my knee hurting. So I found that's something that's really good. I do think that some of the red light stuff, especially the targeted stuff, there's a brand called Kineon. They're in my group. They kind of have these red light things you put around your knee or whatever, your ankle or calf or whatever it is. And I think that's something that what I appreciate about that is that it's just, I can work and do it. I
Yeah.
think that it's very hard for me to find time in my day because I'm a new dad, whatever, business running. If I have something that has to take me an extra 30 minutes of routine, it's just, that's hard to build in. I like the things that I can do while I'm kind of sitting here. So, we've got, the Theragun or the Hyper Ice, that sort of stuff. But I think it's, to me, I don't like to espouse specific things. I like to encourage people to follow curiosities, right? So it's like, what's the thing that's actually going to work for you? You see something, you give it a shot, see what it's like, and then, decide if it's right for you. And it doesn't have to be all this cutting edge cool shit. It could be going fishing. It could be just going for, it's like, let's not pretend that this stuff needs to be overly fancy. Just
Yeah.
find the thing that works for you within the constraints of the calendar that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that you said Pilates because there was a new Pilates studio that just opened up down the street from our house, and I'm like, I turned 41 a little while ago, and so I'm like, man, I could really use that could be an interesting like added to my workout regime. But yeah, you'd be the only dude in there, I think. So you gotta just be cool with that.
And the funniest part is that you're also the worst at it typically.
Right.
Like they are way better, and it's a great, to me, it's a great exercise of not being the best in something, making a fool, not taking myself too seriously, and yeah, I mean, if I would recommend checking a class out, see how you feel, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 to 10 years we see a lot more guys though going that route because it's this really nice complement for injury prevention.
Yeah. Well, I think, most professional or athletic teams are typically at the forefront of what is going to make their athletes perform better. And, you see a lot of professional athletes doing Pilates, doing ballet, doing, a lot of different things that you wouldn't think an offensive lineman for an NFL team would do, but it helps them be more nimble and light on their feet, all these things. And so, not that I'm a NFL player or anything like that, but I still like to run and bike and do all those things. So you want to stay active as long as you possibly can, right? So if anything you can do to prolong that would be beneficial. Got it. So I guess as we kind of wrap up here a little bit, I always like to ask people like, if we jumped on a podcast 12 months from now, we're kind of mid to late July 2025, like what's like one or two things that you would ideally like to see happen within the business so that, you come on and be like, dude, I crushed it this year and we did these things.
Yeah, I mean, for my business specifically, I would just love to get to the place where, let's say we're at 300 members. It's the exact type of people that I want in the group, and we're just really dialed in our back end operations on how to serve them really, really well. And people are posting WGM on their LinkedIn. They're like, wow, I'm like so proud to be a part of this, that this is what I want. But within the industry, I think, I would just love to see the industry come together more. I think I've been seeing recently there's been a couple different things happening where the traditional healthcare system is maybe pushing back on wellness a little bit. Recently, Whoop got a letter from the FDA saying, hey, you're measuring blood pressure, you need to be going through FDA compliance. And I think that we could be on the precipice of I don't want to say a war, but like a bit of a battle between established healthcare insurance companies and the up and coming wellness industry. And I hope that's not true. And I hope that we avoid that and that we assimilate into them well, or we find ways to live together. But I'm a little worried that that could be something that comes in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're all healthy, then nobody needs to take drugs, right? So that just ruins their profit. So, it's that, are we helping people be healthy, or are we helping people get on medication and, not have to do the thing like walk, 10,000 steps a day or go to Pilates or whatever. They can just take a pill and it's fine. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole deep rabbit hole that we could jump into that I'm definitely not educated enough to have a strong opinion other than my own on it. But yeah, I'm definitely more of a, what can I do preventatively or, to supplement as opposed to just jumping in and saying, give me a pill or, whatever. And I think I'll leave that there at that comment because I don't want to get super deep into it. But yeah, we can definitely talk about that later. But Brian, man, it's been really cool. I'm really excited. You got referred to me by a previous guest that's in kind of the wellness world. And so, just talking to him, he was definitely super excited about the community that you've built. And it sounds like, even though not every business has to be on purpose, right? Sometimes great businesses are started because you see a need in a space, and you connected two people, and now you've got 200 people in your network, and you're helping people build wellness, which is hopefully going to make the world a bit of a healthier place, which is a good thing broadly. So I want to end this episode with a quick 3-pack of questions that I ask every guest. So first question here: what's a book or podcast that you found helpful or inspirational that you would want to recommend to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and you prepped me a little bit before to said people maybe freeze on this, and I'm kind of freezing because there's just so many, and it's very hard for me to distill it down. But I think that more than anything, I think rather than sharing that, I'm going to share. There's a 2-minute mantra that I listen to every morning that is really just something very simple. That's all about hey, you're the creator of your own life. You have the ability to do great things. The only difference between faith and fear is something you can't see, so you might as well believe in faith. And just like little snippets that I believe allow me to prime me to work well and to prime my subconscious to get ready to believe that I have the ability to do things that need to be done. And I think all the podcasts and the books ultimately end up doing that too. And I've just found that if you can listen to this 2-minute little meditation, it kind of gets you there, especially if you do it for a while. So I'll say that's my answer for now, and I'll share it to you so you can share in the show notes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, definitely send me the link if you can, because I would love to put that in the show notes and listen to it myself. Because yeah, a lot of business books, you typically get 1 or 2 things that really like resonate with you, right? And so a 2-minute mantra is something you can easily habit stack and listen to while you're driving your car or doing whatever, essentially. So yeah, definitely send that over. That would be awesome. Awesome. Second question here: what is the favorite thing to do outside of work?
Play with my son. I just heard him. He's a little 18-month-old, and just kicking the ball with him, laughing around with him, running around outside with him. That's my main thing right now. It's the best.
Got it. Well, we'll wrap up here in a second so you can go attend to that. So last question here: favorite vacation spot if you have time to do vacations and things.
My favorite vacation spot is definitely Italy right now. That's like
okay.
The place. Here, I'll bring him on. Hold on one second. Wait. You want to have? Okay. You want to come on the podcast? Okay. Say hi. Sorry, I don't know if you ever had a kid before.
Not yet. Hello. What's your name?
This is Luca. He doesn't talk. Did you say hi yet? Hi. But sorry, I think there's one question left. I heard him yelling. Oh.
Yeah, no. What part of Italy do you like to go to?
So his name is Luca. So we went to Luca as our favorite place. That's something we really liked. You want to draw?
Very cool.
But yeah, that's the go-to for us, I'd say.
Awesome. Well, no, my wife and I spent a week in Italy and Rome and Tuscany and Florence last year. So definitely love Italy.
We did that too. That's a pen. That's a pen.
Awesome. Well, Brian, man, great to meet you. I appreciate your time and thank you for being a guest and bringing your son on the pod. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for having us. And say goodbye. You want to say bye, Luca? Say bye. Bye. Okay, thanks.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.